Hey guys, this fella's name is Trent Wilde or Trent Wilde. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but he is the new appointed prophet over you guessed it, Branch Davidian SDA. And he's going to go through this little spiel here to let you all know why the Branch Davidians have such a bad name because of David Koresh, but in the end, you'll hear how, even himself has been ostracized and abused because of this David Koresh name. And they're all good, and this is why we should listen to what they have to say. But anyway, enjoy his little show.
That has greatly damaged many people. And surprisingly, at least to the ears of most, the theft was actually committed, if you will, by David Koresh, aka Vernon Howell. That was his original name, himself. And I know that might sound surprising and might sound like an oddball theory or something like that, but it really isn't, and I'll evidence for you the truth of this. And so please consider the things that I have to put forward here. So, first thing that most people are not aware of is the fact that the Branch Davidian movement existed long before David Koresh. David Koresh was born in 1959. The Davidian movement actually started in 1929. It started in California with the teachings of a man named Victor Houteff. And in 1955, the Davidian movement had its name changed with the addition of the branch name at the beginning. So Branch Davidian, the full name is Branch Davidian Seventh-day Adventist. And in 1955, that took place under the leadership of another individual by the name of Benjamin L. Roden. And so he was the second leader of the Davidian movement and led it from 1955 up until 1978. And before he died, in 1977, his wife, Lois Roden, she actually began teaching a message and was recognized as having a prophetic calling and co-presided over the movement for 1 year until her husband died in the fall of 1978. From that point, she continued on as the leader of the Branch Davidian movement up until her death in 1986. And this is all what, anyone viewing this history will readily be able to see. After that point, things become a little bit more convoluted from an outsider's perspective, trying to figure out, what happened here, and, who are the figures involved, and so on. But, interestingly, David Koresh, as I mentioned before, his birth name was Vernon Howell. He did not come close to the branch movement until 1981. And even coming around in 1981, he didn't become a leader or anything like that. It wasn't until 1983 that he began to teach a message and essentially viewed himself as a prophetic leader to succeed Lois Roden as the leader of the movement. Interestingly, though, even though that's how he viewed himself, that is not actually how everyone else viewed him. In fact, Lois Roden, who was the president of the Branch Davidians Seventh-day Adventist organization, opposed his message, and he opposed her message. And I will share with you some of the things that demonstrate this, although of course there is a lot more. But in this video I just want to give you a sample of the sort of thing that we have with us on record concerning that time. So first I want to quote from a written document by Vernon Howell, aka David Koresh, wherein he refers to what took place in 1983. And he refers to the beginning of his message, just to let you know kind of what he is speaking of. And he understood his message to have begun on the Day of Atonement in 1983, so that year in September. But anyways, this is what he says in a document called The Serpent's Root, which is what he initially called his message. It's The Serpent's Root 1, page 1. You are all aware of the fact that since this message has come, opposition has arisen. Some are acting as madmen. Even our dear Sister Rodin appears to be acting in such a way as to make us shiver. We are definitely living in the time of the fulfillment of Micah 7:5. Every man for himself, so to speak. Why are Sister Rodin and George acting as they are? Didn't Sister Rodin tell us all to go study this message? Why then all the opposition? So of course, when he's speaking of this opposition, it's quite clear that he is including Lois Rodin as a part of this opposition from the beginning of his message, as he says. Another quote from page 2 of the same document. Let's say that I was all wrong in applying this terrible crime to Sister Rodin. Has Sister Rodin showed any one of you the error of our teaching? Then why isn't she helping us with the truth? So you see, often people portray Lois Rodin as kind of handing off the leadership to Vernon Howell. But clearly, according to Vernon Howell himself, Lois Rodin was opposing what he was doing. Now, there's more in addition to a few written documents. In fact, Vernon Howell did not write much. There's only a few documents that he put together. Most of what we have from him is an audio recording. So I would like you to listen to a few clips wherein
this goes
Vernon
on and
Howell
on.
speaks quite plainly negatively.
No one would have had a biased opinion about me. You know what I'm saying? No one would have thought anything about me. The Holy Spirit Mother was the seventh day.
And she considered herself the third angel's messenger in its final phase. Well, in the statement that you just heard, Vernon Howell refers to her, the third angel's messenger, as a harlot and guilty of private interpretation. In other words,
because
she was
they were
speaking not
sleeping together,
according to the inspiration of God, but her own private ideas and her own. Have two different claimed leaders who oppose each other within. This, of course, is just a little bit of evidence just to show you that this was indeed the case. In addition to this, though, there's also audio recordings of David Koresh, or Vernon Howell at the time, saying, Davidian, Branch Davidian, Seventh-day Adventist, study tape 1, and study tape 2, and so on and so forth. So listen to this brief clip of him from a study from October 9th. The first one is the Vernon Howell document.
But this guy's name is Trent Wilde.
The time and the documentation for the fact that Vernon Howell did indeed steal the identity of the Branch Davidian movement.
And he's now the leader of the Branch Davidian movement.
To see this, I want to
or one of the leaders.
Show you and read to you from a document called
And what he's doing is trying to convince us they're all good.
It's a conversation primarily between Steve Schneider and Catherine Schroeder. Steve Schneider was David Koresh, both from the Branch Davidian name and the Davidian Branch Davidian name, and we'll get to what they actually call themselves, although they didn't, settle on a particular name or anything like that. Like, they didn't incorporate with this particular label or anything like that, but they did refer to themselves by some sort of a name, which we'll get to. So continuing in the conversation, they disassociate themselves even from that name. But unfortunately, because of the theft, the identity theft in 1987, and because the property of New Mount Carmel Center belonged to the Branch Davidians,
trying to convince us,
that name became attached to the movement, to the Koresh movement. And ever since, people have associated the name Branch Davidian with David Koresh, his behavior, his teachings, the polygamy, the child abuse, the hoarding of weapons, and all these other things that people think of when they think of David Koresh and Branch Davidians. But the sad thing is, people shouldn't think of David Koresh and Branch Davidians and associate all these things with those terms.
Now let's separate it and make it good.
David Koresh was not the leader of the Branch Davidians. He took that name in 1987 in order to obtain New Mount Carmel Center, the property that was owned by the Branch Davidians. But within a few years, he himself did not use that name.
Yes, he did.
1986, when Lois Roden died. And he and Vernon Howell, later David Koresh, Davidians are being persecuted in their churches even. I myself, I have been publicly humiliated because of the reputation of the Branch Davidian name. I've been publicly slandered. I have been threatened. I've been physically dragged. I know many Davidians who have gone through many different abusive circumstances. In fact, it's very difficult to find a Davidian who hasn't undergone some sort of abuse, again, whether psychologically, verbally,
and this is
physically.
why SDA does not use the title Branch Davidian, or some of them.
Who have been ostracized and treated as though they were criminals because of this whole David Koresh circumstance when they had nothing to do with it. And it's sad. It continues on to this day. I've seen children, I know children, who, because their parents are Davidians, and the Davidian name has been blackened by the reputation of David Koresh, they've been there in their churches. But you
can view more of this mess on the Branch Davidian SDA channel, and I'm just trying to show you guys what these people are and why they don't want to use the name Branch Davidian. But here we are. Thank you for your time. Join me again sometime.